and not just, step in to, agree to something without checking.
Does that answer your question, Mike?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, you were on slot purchase.
I was on slot purchase. Initially, we spoke about this last January, and I contacted schools. I contacted them in August, and most districts are doing what we're doing. They're trying to develop programs within their district so that they keep their kids. And in fact, last spring I had, a couple of parents call me, but what happened was their home districts ended up developing programs specifically for those particular children. So that didn't happen. So we continue to, pursue our, expansion to meet the in-district demand. We had a new class that we had in the elementary schools, as you know, and then still with the focus on related services. So we do have, high-quality services that are greater than, equal to the private school offerings, and our scope of services is greater than other small districts. So, for example, all local private districts. So I have called again, made the rounds again to the districts. And there are some who are interested. We send out one contract to one local district for Vision. That's what seems to be the interest right now, because they have their classroom programs. But Vision is very expensive. There's only really one provider, maybe in the state, but that's used in this location. And that seems to be as though that may be something that we'll be able to build on. And because we have enhance the programs the way we have one student. We're working on bringing that student back. And what we need to do is just be confident that we have the programming to support our argument in a hearing. So that's another way we have to think of that legally. Can we provide an education to these students? And I'm very confident that any student that we have in the district can be educated in the district, and that most of the kids moving in, I would expect that we could educate them in the programs that we have now. It's just these kind of outliers that are placed without, our involvement that should be the issues. New classes and programs. District-wide, we have a full-time physical therapist who is, her name is Jessica Randall, and she's terrific. We have a vision teacher. Her name is Marisa Mills, and she is also very skilled, and it's going to be wonderful to have them in the district. In fact, just, I guess Marisa had been working just 1 week, and she identified a student at one of the schools who, as she had vision in her profile, some vision issues, but when she went to observe her in the class, she noted that she thought they were much more severe, and when she just did an informal, meeting with her, and now is put in for an evaluation because she thinks she has real needs in the area of vision, and that might not have been really discovered as readily as it was with having her here. So that's been a real help. Increased our nursing from 2 days to 3 days, and 1 day that nurse is assigned to the west in a particular classroom to cover for a private nurse that the parent provides the other 4 days, and it's in the student's plan that there's nursing. So we pick up that 5th day, and she will also be in that class most of the time for the other 2 days, because it's a class that has several medically fragile children. And the MAC has established a designated therapy space for related services. Since last year they were using either the media center or just whatever, can and catch can for speech and OT and PT, but now we have speech, OT, vision, and PT. We really need the space, and they were able to find it. New classes and programming. Continuing to the middle school, we have a special education teacher, which is a resource room teacher, which covers grades 5 through 8. And we have a special education clerk at the middle school, and we've designated the resource room classroom. So that's I think will be a help. And that resource room is really to be used for targeted interventions, rather than as a way to remove children from the general education classroom, because we know that that's not as successful. They're not successful when they're removed. And we have to be sure that the high school is making this concerted effort, and the kids coming in from the middle school also need to be able to go into the high school with the expectation that they attend classes. with support if they need it, and with the safety net of having that focused classroom that we do have at the high school. The high school, for new staff, we have a special education teacher, and as I said earlier, we relocated the RISE special education classroom from the back side of the cafeteria into the main corridor on the first floor. And it's a bigger class. It's really very nice. The technology in there is fabulous. At the West, we added a wheelchair swing in the playground. We enhanced the handicapped accessible playground. What's happening there, however, is that we're working on access to the swing, because when they put the, you know about this, Tony, when they put the covering down on the ground, it's
hard to get the wheelchair there.
chips, right? So they can't push the wheelchair over that. So we're getting some prices from the company, and it's going to be, I think, kind of expensive. So we need to be able to provide this for the kids. We have state-of-the-art OT and PT therapy room in the West. New staff, we have a speech therapist who took the place of a retired teacher, a retired speech therapist. New staff is also two special education teachers, one in the resource room to replace a teacher who left, and the second is the new classroom that we established, our special education classroom. And the psychologist, half-time psychologist, school adjustment counselor, is located at the West, and if we have any overflow testing assistance at the MAC that's needed, she would do that. But we have very few evaluations at the MAC. Circuit breaker for 2013. This year we budgeted $312,000. Anticipated reimbursement for this year would be $460,000. So the increase available money would be $82,000. The reasons for this change is we have fewer out-of-district students. We have few awards of the state. I mentioned that when DCF places someone, we have to pay for that placement. But when the formula for circuit breaking is such that what they first we have the cost, and then they take 4 times the foundation, which is about $38,000 off the top, and we would have to pay that. And then the balance of the amount between the foundation and what the cost of the program is, that's the state attributes a percentage of reimbursement, and that's what we get back on circuit breaker. If the kids' awards of the state, which would be those children who are being placed, we get 100% back for that balance. So we don't have to get the 65% or 38%. So that was a reason. We had several of those last year, a couple who either graduated or moved away, so we had additional money from that. And we have a greater reimbursement of the percentage expected than last year. And the theory might be that that's an election year. So the needs that we had the need for the middle school resource room teacher, and we already, approved that money last year. We've hired the teacher, so that's the teacher that we already have there. And then the other thing that we're looking at is to resolve the coordinated program review issue of having team chairs in supporting the special education office, and that would be by hiring someone who would be an administrator, and whatever the position would be called, that would act as an assistant to the SPED director.
Eric.
Thank you very much for your report today. You did mention we hired a nurse, an extra nurse covering 2 to 3 days.
Yes.
Are we able to bill third-party billing to the insurance
Yes.
companies for that?
Yes. And in addition to that, because she's I've been working with Tracy about having the nurses really document the kids that they see, so that we can also get reimbursement on circuit breaker.
Anything else? Tony?
And earlier you mentioned the savings last year, $500,000, another $250,000, and people hear and see us spending money hiring nurses, doing this and that, and hiring psychologists, and maybe they don't understand. Could you just explain maybe a little bit, layman's terms, why if we spend a little money, we can save a lot of money?
Well, when we say we diverted, I'll use that word, you're correct, Eric. 3 students from going out of district. That was because we have in-district programs that would be able to provide programming for them. So if we have 3 students and you add up all the costs of that, it would come to about $250,000, because just a day program costs upwards of $50,000, and then you add transportation on top of that, you're talking another $30,000 or $40,000, depending on, who's in the van and how that would work. So we look at savings in that way. It's sort of it's intrinsic savings, I guess. And as far as the savings for the $500,000 over the past 2 years, that has been actual, money that we have not had to that's been actual savings where kids have been brought back to the district. So the next year we didn't have to pay the tuitions.
So
and as we built up our programs, if we pay $60,000 for a teacher, and then, we just add to our already existing, staff as far as needing the related services, we're able to save a $50,000 or $80,000 tuition in transportation for each child at a
So
cost
instead
of
of
maybe a
sending-
third of that or a quarter of that.
Instead of sending 3 students to 3 different experts, we hire our own expert.
That's right.
And we service those 3 students. And then we also, on top of that, save the transportation of having to transport those 3 students.
The distance that we sometimes have had to transport them. So if we develop a class for those 3 students, it's cheaper to hire a teacher and a couple of staff people, add to the nursing time, increase the PT, have a vision teacher. Vision itself, if we contracted that out, would cost $120 an hour, plus transportation from Boston. And they come sometimes
Anyone who
3 times.
has kids
You
in
think
college.
about it for vision. You can't always do that just like one time a week, or one time's 45 minutes, or one time's 60 minutes, which you might want to do. You have to really provide ongoing services. And in one of the schools this year, we have a student who's totally blind. So it's not just providing him with services in his classroom. The whole school needs to understand him, and he's going to be walking around the school. He's got to be taught all that, and people have to understand, who we have in the school, and the kids have to understand that too. So we're able to provide some more support for that student and the teachers and the students, other students.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you for your report. A couple of questions that I have noted. You heard earlier I've asked for enrollment figures under the SPED department. Furthering request for information, which I'll be making, I suppose, a new business, would be a financial analysis of the past 3 years. And I think it would be good for us to see that in terms of the shift of the budget. I would like to also add my understanding of offering slots, the slot purchase program. I don't think we've seen financial analysis of that as well, so I'd ask that that be placed on the new agenda as well.
And as I said, for that, there hasn't been interest, as I'm calling around for that. The vision services people are interested in. Generally speaking, they have their own other related service groups, and they've been developing their classrooms. But I still send out the letters, and actually now our classrooms are starting to fill. We would have space in the middle school, but until the 2 elementary school programs really, get on track, it'll be a little while before we can add students to that.
Michael?
And I think part of that package of information may in fact be some of the letters from other districts that are offering services, so we can
I have some of that.
take a look at that as well. That would be good information. Thank you.
Can I mention one thing, because I think Ann didn't put a lot of emphasis in this, but the coordinated program review comes every 6 years, and, every 3 years, and 2 cycles ago, we were cited quite heavily, and the last cycle apparently didn't end much better, with a large number of issues that we as a district needed to fix in order to be compliant with the regulations. This time around, and we always ask this question, well, there are certain things that you said that we needed to fix, but they had never been cited on before. And they said, well, we sometimes focus on the worst, most egregious things that you have not been compliant in, and we leave some of the other ones. This one on the chairs, the IEP chairs, was one that we were hoping the .2s that we had last year, that we could use that as a way of saying, hey, we're trying to comply with the regulations. And basically they came back and said, no, you really need a person there at the IEP meetings being able to commit the district to provide services, whether here or out of